Welcome to the Wilson Dittman Sports Channel, where we talk everything Nebraska football. And we have a special video here for you today. I really want to talk about the Huskers in the NFL draft this year, and really want to deep dive into the pros and cons of them as NFL prospects and where I personally see them going when they're inevitably drafted at the end of April. So, yeah, let's get into that. Huskers have 5 players who I believe have a chance at even getting on a roster. And I'll just go down the list. Trey Palmer, Ochaun Mathis, Travis Vokolek, Garrett Nelson, and Caleb Tannor. So I want to start off with Trey Palmer because I think he's going to be the first one off the board. I don't think that's really a debate. So yeah, let's get into him. So again, this is his 4th year in college. First year at Nebraska, he broke out. He had 1,000 yards, 71 receptions, 9 touchdowns, again, and having a couple really good performances, especially against Purdue. So the pros with this guy are, one, his top end speed. I mean, he's 6'1". He can run, a low 4.3, maybe even a high 4.2 speed. At the Senior Bowl, he was listed at having the top speed of any of the wide receivers or DBs there. So again, once he gets to the NFL Combine and runs his 4.2 or again low 4.3, he's going to shoot up draft boards. Because again, if there's one thing that entices NFL scouts when it comes to wide receivers, number one is the 40 time. So that's one of his, again, biggest pros. Another thing is, again, he's great at getting separation. There's a couple clips of him at the Senior Bowl where he was just absolutely just destroying a guy and had a nice double move on him and cut loose. A really good route running. We saw it all year in Nebraska. Again, against Purdue, he was absolutely torching them. Again, the game where he had 300 all-purpose yards. So he is a guy who can absolutely make plays through his route running, not only with his speed. So again, those are the 2 things that really jump out at you when you watch his tape. I mean, he's a dynamic athlete. He's really shifty with the ball in his hands. He can make a guy miss or two. So these are all the type of pros that you get with a guy like him. But really, when it comes down to the cons of Trey Palmer, there's almost a couple things I want to say. But one, the catching. The catching, and Nebraska fans can attest, was not always there. He would drop a couple balls. That was probably the weakest part of his game. And even LSU people would say that last year was that really he didn't catch the ball consistently enough. So, that is a reason to be concerned. I also think, again, he's not super physical. He wasn't great in the run game. He didn't really, he wasn't an active blocker. That's something that NFL scouts look for, especially with different offenses, especially teams like the Eagles, who primarily look for guys like that who could body guys in the run game. Trey Palmer really wasn't that for us. That was Marcus Washington for us. So that's one reason to be concerned. And I think the last thing would be just his inconsistency. Like, he never did this in his career before. Going into this year, he only had his best season was 300 yards, and then he just broke out. So that is a little bit of a reason to be concerned that he only had one good year and one really elite year. But honestly, I think the pros absolutely outweigh the cons. And here's my prediction. I think he's going to the second round. A lot of people before the senior day had him about 4th or 5th round. Now they're starting to have him about 4th or 3rd. And once he gets to the combine, like I told you, once he establishes his speed, I see no reason why he's not going to be a second rounder. A late second rounder, I see it's kind of similar to Cam Taylor Britt. Cam Taylor Britt starting the process last year was kind of a 4th rounder, and then he started getting those reps in and combine invites, and then boom, that was kind of what shot him up to the late second round. So that's where I see Trey Palmer going. But let's get into Ochaun Mathis, who is a really interesting case. Again, obviously, I want to pull up his stats really quick here. Obviously, another guy who's only at Nebraska for 1 season. Like, we basically can't claim that we developed him, especially given the stats were worse this year. But yeah, he had 3.5 sacks, which is actually more than I remember. I think a lot of those were later in the year. But going into, at TCU, he had 4 sacks in 2021, 9 sacks in 2020. He's been in college for 5 years, so he is 23, 24 years old. And again, really, the biggest pro to this guy is his just athletic ability. I mean, we saw it all year long. He was making plays even though he wasn't getting the ball, even though he wasn't getting sacks or tackles. He was making plays and still making a little bit of an impact on that D line. He's just a big athlete, which again, that's what NFL scouts like to see. It's more so athleticism, especially at those D line spots that they're looking for. Again, another guy who's really explosive. He can make plays no matter where he is. He can even play inside in the NFL. I also think he's like another smart guy. He waits. There's a couple really good reads he made in the later season where he didn't get faked out by a pitch or didn't get faked out by a read option. So again, I really think that he is a smart and has a high IQ that I think that will appeal to NFL scouts. But when we go to the cons, again, the main thing is that he regressed, massive regress. This year it just wasn't really that good for Nebraska. It didn't make an impact till late in the season. He didn't play a lot of the snaps. So that's the main thing. I want to look at my notes really quick here. Yeah, he did miss a couple assignments every now and then. But it's just kind of the case when we talk about a guy like him that it's just regression, but you don't know why, because when he did play, he showed you why he's as talented as he is. He showed you why he was as highly rated as he was. He just wasn't producing, which is, again, really weird to me, but that's about it. I think one of my biggest problems with him, though, was that I feel like he only had a couple moves in his arsenal. He didn't bull rush all the time. He didn't. And as an established pass rush, you need to have a full bag of tricks, especially going in the NFL level. So that was kind of something that I was hoping to see from him, and we didn't see it. So that's what I'd say, honestly, for cons. Where do I predict him to go? I think he'll go 5th round. Yeah, I mean, the TCU production is going to get him there. If he only did that in Nebraska, he wouldn't get drafted. But the TCU production is going to get him there, and the raw athleticism is going to get him there. He was invited to the combine, so that's a good sign for him. But yeah, he's going to get drafted. Moving on to Travis Vokolek. Let me bring up his stats really quick here. Another guy who was invited to the combine. By the way, those were the only 3, Trey Palmer, Ochaun Mathis, and Travis Vokolek. Those were the only 3 who were invited to the NFL combine of all Nebraska players. So something to watch there. Some people were mad that Garrett Nelson didn't get invited, that's who we're going to talk about next. So yeah, he had 240 yards this year, 2 touchdowns, 20 receptions. In his career, honestly, the stats aren't there, man. They're really not there. That was his best season in his career, was 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was the best season of his career. Last year he only had 127 yards, and then at Rutgers in 2018 he had 148 yards, or not 148, 184 yards. But it's pedestrian, really. But what you really like about Travis Vokolek, and getting into my pros about him, is he's a big body. He's 6'7". You saw a bunch of Nebraska guys at tight end come out and get to the league the last couple of years, in Jack Stoll and Austin Allen. Granted, both of them were undrafted free agents. However, I mean, we're getting the league, so that's a good thing. And they're getting playing time. Like, Jack Stoll is playing in the Super Bowl tomorrow, so on the active roster. So I mean, that's a good sign. And honestly, that's probably a reason why a lot of people wanted to keep Sean Becton, was because he was actually doing a good job. But let's get to my notes about him. Again, really big. He's really physical, which I really liked watching him at Nebraska. I thought he was a really physical guy. He was pretty good in the run game, just like everybody, all the other tight ends who came through Nebraska. A guy who made some plays when he had the ball in his hands. Like, he was tough to bring down every now and then. He does have again, we talked about it. He's a big guy. He had a knack for kind of finding the soft spots in defenses, which was pretty nice. And again, he had pretty reliable hands, opposite of Trey Palmer. He had some pretty reliable hands and smooth ball control for a guy who's 6'7". We talked about it with Austin Allen. Austin Allen was 6'8", 6'9", and did not. A lot of times when you're 6'8", you're 6'9", you feel clunky when you're running down the field. It doesn't look like they're, as fluid as they are. You could say the same about Austin Allen, but you could say the same about Travis Vokolek. He looks like an athlete out there. He doesn't look 6'7". He doesn't run clunky. He doesn't run anything like that, which you see from some of those guys who are as big as they are. which is a really big plus in him. But honestly, when it comes down to his cons, really it's the lack of production. And I wouldn't even blame him about that. I'd blame the offense more so. I mean, the offense did not give him a chance to holy crap, to succeed. Sorry about that. And that's the big one. I really feel like if he was in an offense like Iowa, he would be putting up numbers like Sam Laporta, if not better. Because personally, I think he's a better tight end than Sam Laporta. And that might be a hot take, but nothing Sam Laporta showed me at Iowa. I don't want to get on a tangent here, but nothing Sam Laporta showed me at Iowa ever impressed me. But other than that, man, I really like him. He did have a couple injuries at Nebraska every now and then, which is a problem. But I strongly believe that this guy will either go in the 7th round or undrafted. And I feel pretty good about the 7th round. I think he'll have a really good combine. I think that's what's going to get him there. I could be mistaken. I don't think Jack Stoll went to the combine. Austin Allen did, though, I feel. I could be mistaken. Let me look this up here. Yeah, so Jack Stoll did not go to the combine. Let's check out Austin Allen. And Austin Allen did. So, yeah, we're right here. But, yeah. So, I really think he's going to go 7th round. And it is weird, though, to consider that neither of those guys got drafted. But I think Travis Vokolek will be the first one, dude, just because I think he might be the best NFL prospect out of all of them, given he does have the worst stats out of all of them. But the 6'7" frame, and really, I saw a lot of pros when watching him. And really, I talked about it. If he was an offense like Iowa or Wisconsin, he would be putting up numbers better than their current tight ends, who are going to go in, the 3rd, 2nd, 4th round. So that's Travis Vokolek. I got him at a 7th round. And let's get into the next one. Garrett Nelson, the fan favorite. Pull up my notes really quick about him. Yeah. So Garrett Nelson had 5.5 sacks this year, 35 tackles, 1 forced fumble. And it was the best season of his career, although kind of was expecting a little more from him. I really thought this was going to be kind of a massive breakout season where he could establish himself as maybe a first-team All-Big Ten caliber player. He didn't get there. I think he was 2nd team. I believe he was 2nd team. But it's still, again, we're still a really solid season. 65 total tackles, excuse me. And looking at his career in general, he had 12 sacks in his career. And again, a bunch of tackles. So really, and the stats are there. The stats are there. My main con about him, and okay, let's start with the pros. The pros, he's a sure tackler. He has drive. He has effort. He's a really big. I always say there's such a award for guys who try hard and have as much passion as culture as a guy like him, but a lot of times when they get to the NFL process, that's not respected enough as it should be. So that's a problem, but the motor is definitely there for Garrett Nelson. That's a plus. He did show as Garrett Nebraska that he has a couple moves in his bag when it comes to the pass rush, but not where it needs to be. Same thing with Ochaun Mathis. A lot of his sacks were him just shooting up the field without being blocked. Like it wasn't just straight up hand in the dirt, him making a play on a tackle. So that's kind of a problem. But again, there's not a lot of pros. I think his IQ is really good. Again, his drive's good. He's a sure tackler. But when it comes down to the cons, it's raw talent. And that's what it's always going to be. It's raw talent. He doesn't run the best 40 time. He won't, he wasn't invited to the combine, which is going to hurt him a lot in the draft process. He doesn't have a big first step. Again, he's not going to play coverage linebacker in the NFL. He's going to have to put his hand in the dirt and be an edge rusher. So he doesn't have that raw ability that they're looking for at edge rusher in the modern day NFL. He doesn't have the moves in his bag to be able to be drafted high enough. So those are the really things that concern you. And I know a lot of people, might roll their eyes about raw athleticism, but it's a real thing. Paddy Fisher, you might remember, he was a linebacker for Northwestern. He probably the most tackles in the entire country a couple years ago. He went undrafted. The production was all there, the drive was all there, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you don't, have this certain skill set and physical traits. So that's the only thing that's putting him down. And I do think he's going to go seventh or undrafted free agent. That's my prediction. I don't really love it because I love not Caleb Tannor. I love Garrett Nelson, but that's just the way it is, and that's the way the modern NFL works. So I'm hoping he gets a 7th round draft spot, but I think he'll be an undrafted free agent. But he'll get a deal. Don't worry about it. And the last one is going to be Caleb Tannor. I did hit at it like 5 seconds ago, but yeah, Caleb Tannor. Now, Caleb Tannor, not my favorite player. I think he's probably was one of the more overrated players in Nebraska's history. Every single offseason, people were like, this guy's going to break out this year. This guy's going to break out this year. This guy's going to break out this year. He never broke out. Not one single year. He had 6.5 sacks this year, which is best of his career. Tied for the best of his career. But the other time he tied it was in 2019. Like to show you his sack total, in his first year in 2018, he had 1. Then he had 2.5 in 2019, 2 in 2020, 2 in 2021, and 2.5 in 2022. So he really never showed improvement in the sack category. He did get more tackles this year than he ever did in his career. But other than that, man, there's not a lot on the stat column. As for the pros and cons, I love his drive. He is a lot more talented than Garrett Nelson physically. But they're kind of polar opposites in a way. Is that Caleb Tannor is a guy that you can be ensured that's going to try hard every play. Or not Caleb Tannor. Garrett Nelson's a guy who you can be ensured he's going to try hard every day, do whatever he can to win. Caleb Tannor, might be a culture issue there. I didn't like a lot of the ways he handled himself in Nebraska. He got ejected. I don't know if he got ejected, but he had some pretty bad penalties throughout his career here. He pouted a lot. He has a vaping problem, which people might not know. So again, that's something that he's to work on. But as for his height, he's 6'3", he's big. As far as athleticism, it's all there. It's everything. NFL scouts will love it. It's just the lack of production and lack of culture. Again, we talk about the cons though. Again, production's number 1, culture's number 2, and another guy who really has all the athleticism in the world, but really doesn't have a full bag of tricks when it comes to the pass rush, which you're looking to develop in the NFL. I have a 7th or undrafted free agent grade on him. However, if I am ranking him compared to Garrett Nelson on who I think is more likely to get drafted, I got to go to Caleb Tannor. I just think he's more likely to get drafted, just given his traits. And it's unfair. It really is unfair to Garrett Nelson because, Garrett Nelson outproduced Caleb Tannor every single year of his career. It was doubted. Caleb Tannor got here as a 4-star recruit. So, but that's my grade on him. So, again, to recap it, Trey Palmer, I got him going 2nd round, got him shooting up draft boards. I got Ochaun Mathis going 5th round. I got Charles Vokolek again the 7th. Garrett Nelson going undrafted, and Caleb Tannor also going undrafted, but I could see either of them go in the 7th round. So, yep, that's my video here about the guys in the NFL draft out of Nebraska. So I hope you enjoyed, and we will make a video in late April when the draft actually does happen, breaking down where they went, how I like the fits, and revisiting this video on how my predictions stacked up. So again, thank you guys for watching. If you did like the content or liked my insight or any of that, please hit a like button or subscribe. That helped me out a lot. And even comment. So that'd be great. And again, enjoy your Saturday and see you later.